Okay, so I have my paint window up and I will begin the topic of miniature M&Ms. So, um, now this is obviously somewhat opinionated because a lot of people will say that they like regular M&Ms over mini M&Ms, but it seems to be a general trend, and also people who do like regular M&Ms over miniature M&Ms will also agree usually that there is a difference in the flavor or the taste in general. So I just want to explain why that is, because a lot of people tend to overlook the obvious in that situation. So first off, we can have our normal M&M, which let's say is about it's probably about a centimeter long, 1 cm, and then our miniature M&M is, I want to say, less than half of the width of that, but I can't be certain. If anyone has the actual numbers on that, feel free to post them in the chat. But obviously, the miniature M&Ms are um, a significant dimension smaller than the original M&Ms. So these are M, and I can't draw the ampersand off the top of my head. I drew backwards. That's the problem. So it goes. I'm looking at my keyboard. Goes up, around like that. M&Ms. So we have this is less than 1 centimeter. And so what happens is when you change just one dimension, the volume tends to become extremely smaller because in a circular shaped object, um, changing the radius of that object completely changes the volume. The volume of a cylinder is pi r um, pi r squared times h. So if we just assume that these shapes are cylinders with a radius, the normal M&M would have zero point 0.5 cms for radius, and a miniature M&M would be obviously a lot smaller than that in terms of volume. But what I want to talk about is the composition of an M&M. So we all know what an M&M is. It is a chocolatey coating, or is a chocolatey orb per se, that is coated in a layer of candy. So if you have the chocolate in the center, and let's get a red M&M, that's usually pretty go-to when it comes to M&Ms. So we have our red M&M here. It's a cross section. So we see the chocolate in the center, and then we have this candy coating on the outside. Now, let's just assume that this candy coating has a negligible width. So this distance here, from here to here, is approximately zero. Well, then we can assume that the candy itself would then be the surface area of this orb. So if this orb were to be considered a sphere, which it's not, it's somewhat of a flattened sphere, but if this orb were a sphere, that surface area would be 2 pi r. I'm sorry, I believe that's actually the surface area of a circle. So that I believe would be 4 pi r squared, if I am correct, because the volume is 4/3 pi r cubed, and when you take the derivative of that, 3 times 3 cancels out, and then this becomes a 2, and then it's 4 pi r squared. Um, that may be a little over some people's head. So the surface area is the candy, and the volume is the chocolate. So in this case, there's a decent bit of surface area, but there's a lot more chocolate. And so that's important because the amount of chocolate, so we're just going to say chalk is significantly greater than candy. And so this is the normal M&M. And so the ratio of chocolate to candy, we could give an estimate, would maybe be about 5 to 1 in terms of volume when you consider the actual volume. Someone could probably run the numbers on that. I don't have the time to run the actual numbers, but in concept, this does make sense. So if we have a smaller M&M, now obviously by limitations of machinery, you can only make the candy coating so thin, and so the the chocolate will change how the volume will change, and obviously the surface area will change with the size of the orb, but at the same time the surface area will go down less than the volume will, because the volume has an r cubed term in it and the surface area has an r squared term in it, meaning that the volume grows faster, but it also decays faster when you lower the radius. So the ratio here would be a little bit closer to a 1 to 1. We could go and say maybe a 2 to 1 ratio. So 2 to 1 ratio. What this means is that you're getting a lot more candy per given volume. So if you had like a measuring cup full of M&Ms, so it's the same size, and you fill it as much as you can with normal M&Ms, and then you fill the same measuring cup later with uh, miniature M&Ms. The ratio of candy to of chocolate to candy is significantly less in the terms of the miniature M&Ms. So the sheer amount of candy you're actually getting with a miniature M&M is a lot more in a given volume. And so this is the reason that a lot of people tend to like the miniature M&Ms more than they like the regular M&Ms. This idea that there is actually more candy per bite, if you want to say that, than there is in a normal M&M. Now, obviously, if you are only eating one miniature M&M at a time, and then you only eat one M&M at a time, you're getting a lot more in general with the regular M&M. But most people would grab like a handful of the miniature M&Ms, and say you grabbed a handful of the regular M&Ms, you're going to get a lot more candy in the miniature M&Ms. So if you are someone who really loves chocolate, then you probably do like the regular M&Ms better. But if you want to go out and try, there is a significant difference in the taste and the texture of a miniature M&M. Now, also, there's the idea that when you have a bunch of miniature M&Ms, there's a lot less air in a bite because they're packed closer together when you have a handful of it compared to a handful of regular M&Ms. So that would also change the flavor. But the biggest factor in this is surface area. And so I wanted to explain that briefly, and I hope that was a good understanding. If there's any questions in the chat, I'll be open to answering those. And I might answer them later if I end up moving on before they are posted. So, this was a pretty simple topic. I just thought of it. Actually, I didn't think of this topic on my own. I was scrolling through the Reddit forums of the Ask Reddit, and this came up, and I just thought that was a pretty straightforward topic that I could explain in a light that most people wouldn't really look at it. So, with that being said, this is all I wanted to say on that topic. So I'm going to be moving into my second topic, which is Settlers of Catan. So I'm going to give it a second and clean up the board here, and we will be moving on to that.